targeting a population, as we talked about before or previously, a group of people or population whose needs you have the ability to meet. Is there at this stage of the game, as we're maybe an hour away from Delaware and spending a couple days really talking to people and sniffing around and getting a greater feel for it, as you've been here a couple times, do you have a feel for direction out of the gate, or where you might like to go, or do you have any sort of vision right now for what that new worshiping community looks like?
I know I have a deep connection with my roots, my family being from Guatemala.
Right.
I love the Spanish language. I love the culture and the food and the dance and the music. So I feel that's a big part of who I am. So if that's not a part of what I do in ministry, I feel like it's missing.
Okay.
And at the same time, I grew up in New Jersey, born and raised in New Jersey, and call the United States my home. So if that's not a part of it, and English and all that, the prevailing history and culture isn't a part of it, then that feels like it's missing out. So immediately I want to think of who are the people like myself that grew up in a bilingual home or know something about growing up biculturally, that I could reach out to and perhaps serve, or the new worship community could serve as a bridge between them and their parents, and them and their community, and the ways they experience faith. So that's one thing that comes immediately to mind. I'm in a band, like I said. I love music. It gives me great joy. So if that's not a part of the new worshiping community, again, something else is missing. So I really want to connect to artists. I want to connect in all their variety, musicians and
Right.
poets and writers and actors. And I'd love to get a sense of what would bring them into church. Not because ultimately I'm trying to convert them or make, like you were saying earlier, put them into a formula, but because they're such a blessing to me. It's kind of selfish.
Sure, no, I understand that.
I think that their way of being prophetic at times, or celebrating joy, or speaking to pain and suffering, or exploring meaning and loss, and their own faith as well, or lack thereof, I think it's just so refreshing to me, and is what I would want to experience in a church. So that's another community that immediately comes to mind. And I think thirdly, it's a collection of people, hopefully intergenerational, because something's missing if it's not everybody, kind of a thing. But people who are interested in experimenting with church as it could be, and reimagining church. I've always said that. I've always told my colleagues when they've told me, all right, so what kind of church are you looking for? This kind of thing. And I've said, I just want God to grant me the grace and the courage to be, if I'm ever interviewed for a church position, to be able to tell them, listen, I don't want to come in and do Christmas for you. I don't want to come in and do the faith thing for you. I don't want to come in and save you. I don't want to come in and do any of that. I want to come in and say, what's meaningful to us, and how can we do it together? What does that look like? So, meaning, I'm interested in I love Christmas. I think it's very meaningful, but I don't want to put on a show. I want to put on something that's meaningful for people and for me. So
what if your people want a show? What if you have 5 years from now and you have 50 families in your church, and 20 of them have little kids that want to dress up in their Halloween costumes to be different kind of animals in the manger, and you got somebody else who just had a baby, and she says, here's the baby Jesus for you, and and you're caught in the middle between, I'm not sure, what are you going to do with that?
Well, see, that's not what I mean by show. I mean, I meant it in the sense that I am performing something that's inauthentic to who I am, only to meet an expectation of something I'm not even called to meet, that I don't feel called to meet.
You're wanting to be authentic and to be true to yourself.
Yeah, and I think if a community came up to me and said, hey, we really want this, you know, to do this Christmas pageant, sort of, you know, and if
Can I be one of the wise guys?
If that's meaningful to them, I'll be like, by all means. But it's not something I'm really passionate about.
Right.
So as long as they're willing to put in the energy into it, I'm glad to even be a part of it. You know, and if that is meaningful to people, by all means. I mean, it doesn't, you know, have to be every single thing I would prefer. Right. But it's more like, I don't want to be hired to offer a service that I don't feel I'm really called to offer. I want something a little more connectional, a little more, you know, relational. I want to know the people in deep ways, and I want them to know me. I want them to know, yeah, Edwin's not really the pageant type, but we'll throw it, and he'll have a good time watching it. I'll be like, great, sounds good to me.
Sounds like a plan, Stan.